The manhwa starts with a man saying that he knows that name very well. And we start to get a description of the man. He's uncontrollable, a swordmaster who never wants to leave his room, and he's a man out of his mind. He is Count Perdium, useless oldest son Ghislain Perdium. We see the man that he is fighting asking how he, the best knight of the north, was defeated by that garbage human being, and Ghislain asks him if he finds it warm and cozy, saying he put a lot of money into making that trap. Bro has a coldest walk out and he glares at him asking if he likes it. His enemy says there's no way he's the garbage. Ghislain asking him how he knew of his plans beforehand. Ghislain says not just that, he also knew how many of them there were, who the spies were, and who helped him with the reinforcements. He knew everything from the start and he play it in the palm of his hand. The man gets angry saying there's no way, and he's always been a hidden ace card, asking how could a useless piece of like him dare to mess with him, but he gets interrupted by getting kicked straight in the face as Ghislain tells him to shut it. He says to try invading however many times you want, he's going to be the one to win the war after that. Every single time without fail he takes off his helmet and asks if he knows why that is. He says it's because he has all of the plans. It jumps to a year ago in the Luia kingdom, near the Perdium estate. Haina is looking at his hand all shaky and asks what just happened. He reaches for his throat, surprised that he's alive. He says there's no way, just a while ago he was killed. We see his sword get sent flying through the air mid-combat by his enemy, he says, and we see him get cut straight across the chest like Zoro, but he was already bleeding pretty heavily. He falls to his knees and a red-haired knight says this is how it ends. Ghislain Perdium, the Mercenary King and one of the continent's 7 strongest men, has lost to none other than one of the continent's top 7 noble knights, named Idun. He says the war is over and he asks Ghislain if he has any last words. Jin says none, it's just a shame that he was unable to fulfill his revenge, and wishes that Idun would just die here. Idun sighs, calling him arrogant, saying that he didn't expect him to have been the oldest son of the fallen PRM household though, and that he recalls him leaving his family after his sister died. Iseen asks how he knows that when he's from a different kingdom. Idun says of course he knows that because he worked his ass off to try to track him down, because they were the ones who worked with the Delphian household to bring down his family. Iseen hears the words. Ween realizes there were other people besides the Duke Delian household that planned his family downfall. Idun puts his blade to his throat, saying there's no point explaining to him further since he's going to be dead soon, and that he should just accept his fate. Ginez yells, calling him a bastard, saying that he'll never forgive him, and Idun says he doesn't care and then swings his sword, cutting Jin's head clean off, causing his blood to go flying through the air. Explains that he was decapitated at that moment. Yet here he is with his head still on his shoulders. He wonders if that was all a hallucination, as he is his younger self. He wonders if maybe he was taken captive and uses a lab rat for the mages. These arrogant bastards will regret having kept him alive. Somebody calls out to him, calling him young master, and Ghislain turns and we are introduced to one of the Prum soldiers named Ricardo, who says that he needs Ghislain to come out because he knows he's awake. Ghislain instantly tells him to just be quiet and puts his blade to his throat, saying he'll let him live if he answers his questions, or maybe not, and he begins to release killing intent. Ricardo is confused, asking him what's going on, saying this is crossing a line and that no means no. Inside, Ghislain wonders what's the deal with his reaction since he's being threatened, asking what he's talking about. Ricardo pushes him away, saying he tired himself out from his tantrum earlier and fell asleep. Ghislain asks what he's talking about, and Ricardo asks him if he forgot everything after taking a nap, saying that he was throwing a tantrum about how he was going to command the group to raid the orcs. Ghislain is confused, asking what kind of nonsense this is, and Ricardo says that he needs to get his together as people are waiting on them. Ghislain asks where they are going, and Ricardo says of course to the Pum estate. Ghislain is surprised by this and grabs Ricardo's shoulder, telling him to say that again. Ricardo asks what's wrong, but Ghislain presses him further, asking if he means the fallen Pum estate at the top of the cliff. We see Ghislain looking over at the Pum estate. Ghislain is surprised, saying it really is his house and he wonders how it's still standing as he saw it reduced to ashes in the past. Ricardo asks him if he had a nightmare or something, saying that if he calls his own household fallen it's too much and he will get kicked out. If the Count hears that, Ghislain pinches his cheek, asking if he is dreaming, but says that hurts, so never mind, he has a younger face and his estate is in its original state. That means he has traveled back to the past, or perhaps an alternate timeline. His younger self residential ed the household, and his immaturity was born from feeling inferior, and as more time passed, more people from the household avoided him. He was unable to withstand the criticism and ran away from home. Several years after that, he became a mercenary. He survived countless battles, building up his skills and made a name For himself he returned to the Prum country in order to make up for his past mistakes, but all he had waiting for him was the remains of his family's household, and he lost everything, but right now it's still all here. All the people he holds dear are still alive as well. He begins to smile, saying he can't believe it, and he wants to sing a song of joy, but it's too early to rejoice. He recalls Ricardo mentioning the raid about the orcs, and he can't forget that day. This is the day that most people in the raid squad will die brutally to the orcs. In his past life he had followed the orc raid squad in an attempt to make a name for himself. Insert Gambit meme. At that time the report said there were only 3 orcs. He thought that would be easy enough for somebody like him, who had no experience commanding a squad. But when they got there were more than 20 orcs. Almost everybody ended up dying because he had been stubborn and wanted to command them all. It should be doable enough since these orcs didn't really have a strategy. The problem is if these guys will trust him, since they all think he's a useless bastard. We then hear something being thrown overhead as one of their defense fortresses just got sent flying across the ground in front of him, and some soldiers scream that it's the orcs and that they are here as we see the giant reddish orcs charging straight in. Dine asks if they got here this fast in his past life too. The orcs are absolutely bodying them. I do not see them winning this. Plot armor needs to kick in because bro is about to die. Again in his second life a man yells in a panic, saying everybody needs to get into formation and that they don't need to panic. Kind of ironic, he is the raid squad commander named Skav. An orc swings his blade at him and Sen manages to avoid it narrowly. He says that they let their guard down and getting ambushed was something they weren't prepared for. There are way more of them than was reported too, and at this rate they are all going to die. Jine calls out to him and Sen turns confused and he tells him that he needs to watch behind as an orc is coming in for a surprise attack. Jine quickly dashes and heading straight towards Skaven, putting his arm on his shoulder, and he throws him out of the way of the attack. Skav is confused and he wonders why Jine is sacrificing himself for him, but he is mistaken, as Jine stabs his blade straight in through the orc's hand, cutting its arm and leg clean in half. Everybody is speechless as the orc lets out a scream and falls to the floor, crushing the ground beneath it due to its size. Jine cleans his blade from the blood, saying that he guesses he can't use mana and he wishes he had returned to the past earlier. He walks over to Skaven asking if he is the commander. Skaven is just confused and Jine tells him to give it. Skaven asks what he is talking about, and bye viewers, see you in next part.